What's up, strength coaches? Welcome back to another Cheeky Midweeky, and we got Jess Burke back by popular demand. All right, like Drake said, top five, top five, top five. Still in there, cracking the top five. Jess, how is life?
Life is good. Thank you for asking. Life is really good. Just training, currently training in person and making my own schedule and not working 7 days a week. So it's kind of a luxury,
Hold
if
on,
I
you're
may
not working
say.
7 days a week, and you're
I know
like,
I don't want it. I'm not tough enough to do that. So I'm just not about it like that. So yeah, it's good.
so most recently you had a post that there's been a ton of people that have reached out to you since you came on the show, and obviously I'm not asking you to say, hey, who said what, but like, what have been kind of the themes of what people were reaching out to you about?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I want to kind of give, you props in that you have developed this community of strength coaches that is so great, so supportive. I had a lot of people reach out to me after the episode saying that they liked it. A lot of people followed, just saying that they resonated with the message. Or I'm sorry. It's
What?
like, I'm so sorry. I don't
What?
know if it's like helicopter Friday over here, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was not expecting that. It was so loud. Could you not hear that?
Didn't hear a thing. Do you know who Nate Bargatze is?
Yeah.
Did you see his stand up where he was going outside and he had the helicopters going overhead when he was in the middle of his show?
No.
Okay, so hopefully some of our listeners out there, they are familiar with the stand up, but it's his 2021, so it was after COVID, but like they couldn't have people convene, and he's outside doing a show, and he's
Hmm.
talking, and like sometimes he has to stop because there's a helicopter going overhead, and he's talking to this crowd like, listen, you guys don't understand, I'm facing you guys and I'm looking, trying to do my act, seeing if there's helicopters. So that's the Nate Bargatze little quote for everybody today.
That feels like what just happened. I'm so sorry. No, but like I said, I want to give you props, like your audience. The coaches in this audience are great and super supportive. And, a lot of people kind of started following along with me and started sending me messages just telling me that they appreciate, the conversation that you and I had, where both of us, frankly, were really kind of open and transparent about strength and conditioning and things like that. And then there were several coaches that I had the opportunity to connect with kind of on a more personal level. A couple coaches that hopped on FaceTime calls with. One coach, I spoke with her. We were on the phone for like an hour while I was,
That's fucking awesome.
on a layover in an airport. So, I've probably had like 7 or 8 phone calls or FaceTimes with coaches just from this and them kind of wanting to talk more and get another perspective. So your audience is just freaking awesome. So
Appreciate that. So I actually had a call earlier with a strength coach who, listen to this, and I want to get your opinion on it. He works at a university, but the university does not employ him or the other strength coaches. They're contracted out, much like some ATs are. And he doesn't have to do any, like they have a director of operations who kind of handles all the administrative stuff and then works with the athletic director. And it's contracted out by, so it's Donald Driver, the former NFL player, number
mhm.
80, was fucking jacked. Helped me win a lot of fantasy games back in the day. Anyways, his company, I forget the name of it, but they're the ones that contract out the strength coaches, and then they do all the other BS, and then the strength coach gets to just do their job and work at the school. Do you think
Imagine
that's a
that.
good thing? I
I
think it's
mean,
awesome.
I think I think it sounds awesome, right? I've never experienced that. So I don't know what the logistics are with that. I don't know how well that flows within an athletic department. I have no idea, right?
Same. Yeah.
It sounds awesome, right? I mean, just from the last sentence that you said, they just get to go there and do their job, which is like unimaginable for a lot of us. That sounds like quite the life. I might still be in collegiate if that was the
That's
case, but
that's kind of what I thought. He's like, I kind of deal with like you make some adjustments here or there, but he's like, I kind of tell the operations person like, hey, this is what we need to do, and they've been able to contract out a lot more other coaches because it doesn't cost the school has much money, and it's like it's kind of on the business, and it's like I heard him saying all these things like they added more positions and they're adding nutrition, like they're giving these kids it's at Dell State. This is all public information. It's not like I'm sharing anything that nobody
Yeah.
isn't
Trade
researchable.
secrets.
Yeah, like so it's at Dell State, and Donald Driver was an athlete at a HBCU, and so that's at a HBCU trying to give them, better resources and kind of more continuity. And I was like, if that was the case, I feel like that's a really good thing, because when I was in Maryland, Loyola University, they contract out athletic trainers, but they were creating these contracted out strength and conditioning jobs. And it's like, I mean, it makes sense if you think about the medical model, because athletic trainers and doctors are that way. Like, I think that could be a good thing for us.
I think that could be too. I think it just kind of brings up the question of just the current kind of power dynamic within athletic departments, in that, like, we talked about it last time, like, is the strength coach the CEO? Well, it's like, not only do I, not work for you, now I don't even work for the same organization as you technically. So I think it's easier with medical professionals like ATs and stuff like that, because there's a more clear scope of work, and they kind of have the final say on a lot of things. I'd be interested to see kind of how it works, right? And what the dynamic is like. Did the coach, like the coach that you spoke with, did he liked it, or
He loved it, because like you said,
yeah,
he literally has a better work-life balance now, because he's not having to handle as many things. Like, they kind of just administratively be like, hey, okay, this is what you make, like this is your salary, you work for this company, yes, you're contracted out, and like you obviously have to follow by the rules, and you're still following like the code of conduct, and you're building the culture of Dell State or whatever school you're working for. But because there's other people contracted out through what Donald Driver and his company's doing, it spreads the workload out. So rather than trying to, get the athletes to learn the movements and get them strong and do all those things, then you're having to try to negotiate with coaches on when they're going to train, versus just having, that's what the director of operations does, and you don't have to handle that. You kind of work with that person. It's like, holy cow, you're kind of getting to take the hats off. He's like, man, I'll tell you, the level of stress has just come off me, and I can just coach the kids.
that's wild. That's wild. That's I can't, just coaching the kids. I can't even picture it, honestly. No, I mean, good for, I hope, I think we're gonna see a bunch of little like changes in direction of the way that athletic departments are managing their support staff. I think there's going to be a lot of different
Taking a quick break from the show to tell you about our deal we have going on right now in December. If you sign up for Fundamentals Level 1, you will get 1 free year at Strength Coach Network. That's right. Sign up for Fundamentals, our 20-hour long-form education course that has information on every topic in strength and conditioning that will make you a better strength coach, regardless of the field that you're in. Not only if you're a strength coach, personal trainer, athletic trainer, physio, this is for you, because all the education about progressions, regressions, motor learning, speed, agility, jumps, you name it, we have information in it. So sign up for Fundamentals, get a free year at Strength Coach Network. Click the link down below. Let's get back to the show.
kind of organizational structures going on, because hopefully we're realizing that as it is now, it's not sustainable for a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't enjoying it. I was kind of speaking with a one of my former sport coaches, and she was on board. She wanted to kind of employ a strength coach as part of her coaching staff, right? So instead of it being in a separate department, she wanted a strength coach on her staff, right, to be her assistant, which obviously is a completely different dynamic. You have to have a good relationship with that coach, and you have to see eye to eye on a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
But if you do, like, another thing that could be cool, because you're not operating within a department. I think, facilities would be a hurdle that you'd run into there. But
Yeah.
I mean, everything is manageable, figure outable, right? So
Yeah, 100%. And when you almost do that, though, it's like you kind of know It's like a relationship, and it's not fully, but it's like, look, I know that I'm tied to you, and like our success is your success, because a lot of times coaches will be like, hey, the offensive coordinator just wants to score points. If they don't win, they can be like, hey, the defensive coordinator sucks. Head coach just wants to win games. And it's like, when I was at Iowa, we knew, like, fuck, we went to this Big Ten championship game. It's like, hey, we're all going to get raises. Cool.
Hmm.
If we don't win, we're going to lose. Cool. But we knew what we were getting into, versus a lot of these situations where, something like me working at Towson, where you're not really tied, but you're tied in terms of you can get fired, where like that's what I think coaches just don't like. And that's why I think what is at Dell State, it's just very clear in terms of these are the measurable KPIs, and this is how you know you're progressing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because it is, now that I say that, it is very much that way in football. And then, I mean, basketball is usually like some hybrid model. You usually have a basketball team and then you have like golf, right? Or
Yeah.
something like that. That's a little bit lower hours per week. But those people are often people that not necessarily are brought in by the head coaching staff, but are often, really hand selected by them, out of the department or externally. So I don't know, maybe some sports shift that way. Who knows?
What has been some of the questions that, or were people asking you questions about, like, hey, how to price things in terms of when they're getting hired and doing their own thing? Because that's something that I'm starting to get asked more and more of, and see people trying to figure out, like, how can they figure out a price to offer their services, especially now that coaches can do some of the stuff with TeamBuildr's newest function that they just released. Like, they're starting to figure out, like, oh shoot, I can like make some side income. Like you said, I got all this extra time, like I might as well program, especially if I'm on the road.
Yeah, no. Honestly, so I didn't really talk like shop in terms of like expanding your business outside of collegiate with anyone who kind of reached out to me. The general direction of the conversation was very much, like, to be completely candid, and like I said, I'm not gonna name names or anything. But I had this girl, female coach, and I ended up FaceTiming with her for a little bit, and um, you could tell she had never felt comfortable like talking about coaching and how difficult it is, right? And how much she was struggling within her own department, and how kind of alone she felt, and how she didn't really feel supported. And the undertone of that conversation was very vulnerable and like very emotional, right? I think her and I both ended up like crying during the conversation, because I think it was validating to her. Like, you could tell this was stuff that she'd never said out loud before. So I think where I expected a lot of people to be like, hey, like, how do you make money? Because I am making none in collegiate, how help. I very much expected that. It was more like, hey, nobody's talking about this. Can I talk about this with you? Which, absolutely, I'm here to talk and be a sounding board. But it was just a lot of like relief and vulnerable conversation. Honestly, nothing about business ever came up with pretty much anybody.
So that actually makes me, uh, without diving into too much of the details of it with her, was she saying that because she was the only female on staff? And that makes me, my second question is when my wife and I were talking about when we hired our second assistant, Kate, on staff. Kate was now the second female on staff with Courtney, and my wife was like, look, I bet you're going to see not only Kate obviously enjoy life, but like Courtney, you're probably going to see her where she's now not the only female anymore. How do you handle that as a assistant, a department head? Like, is that important? Like, what is the impact and the value of it from my perspective, a 36-year-old man that doesn't know what it's like?
So she was not the only female on staff, which I think is a good thing. I think that, in these departments, in smaller departments, it's harder, right, to
Yeah.
have, more representation from everyone. And we see more women in the field year after year. Um, but in these bigger departments, I think it's huge. I think it's important to have, somebody else. I think that, um, a lot of her struggle came from not that she was feeling isolated as a woman, but I think there's a pressure, especially as a woman in this field. You are really reluctant to admit weakness or admit that you're tired or admit that, somehow you can't handle this because that's the underlying thought in some people's heads already, right? So it's almost this really performative, like, I'm fine, I'm hard as nails, I can handle it, like, don't worry about me. That definitely, you could tell, was eating away at her over time, right? Because you can't go into your office like I could. And the guys that I worked at Penn State with were great, but I couldn't go into my office and shut the door and look at all three of them and just start crying. And I'd be like, this is really hard. Am I right? Like, I could never do that. I came close. I definitely came close, and I think they would have been great, right? But I that would never be something that me as a female in a male-dominated profession, like, I'm not crying in the weight room, right? I'm not. We're doing that in the car, like an adult, right? So just kind of, I think she was tired. I think it's fatiguing. So I think you asked a great question. How do you support that as even another coach, an assistant, a
Exactly.
director, a
Yep.
department head? How do you do that? And I think it takes time and it takes, intention. But what I want to remind people is that we're all coaches. Our job at its core is to connect with people and communicate ideas and educate, right? And you need to be able to do that with your coworkers as well. And I think the more that we have these conversations about the fact that it's fucking hard. It's a hard profession. And nobody that I've talked to has argued with that fact. I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we're open about it, the more that we feel comfortable, coming into the office and being like, this season beat the absolute shit out of me. The more comfortable people get, saying those things. And I've been spoiled. I've had some great departments that, have been really supportive, but I've also worked in departments where it's like, you don't show your hand ever. If you're tired, you act like you're not. And I'm sure you can relate, right?
Oh yeah, because that was actually what I was getting. As I'm listening to you talk, I was like, you know what? There's been times where, me personally being okay, you're a bald-headed, bearded, 250 pound, 6'3" former offensive lineman. Like, you can't show that you're tired. Or like, hey, this season beat the crap out of me because there's been times where like I've had to. It's actually been nice to have a female assistant working in a male-dominated sport where I could be like, hey, Kate, like, who, man, this, or she's like, are you good? Like, somebody to check in on you, and that, like, I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I wanted to like make that comment and bring it up for any of our male listeners out there too, because it is like, it can be a grind on you, especially if you do put your heart and soul in it, regardless of whatever sport you work with, whatever field. If you want to be good, you got to put time and effort and energy.
Well, and yeah, and I mean, it may shock you that I'm, quite a feminist myself. So I'm not like a traditional, gender roles person, as, shocking as that may seem. But there is a lot to be said for just like the emotional intuitiveness of like women in general. And I found myself doing that same thing, right? I would walk into the room and one of my, male coworkers would just be kind of dragging, and I'd be like, hey man, like, are you good? And he'd be like, no, like, actually, like, this week is like really hard, man, and like my wife's out of town, and it's like, it's okay to have those conversations at work, because I mean, if we're gonna live there, we can't pretend like, it's not hard sometimes. So I love that you made that point. I think more females in departments can make a little bit more comfortable of a space for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's also important too, just to be able to, like, for the athletes to see somebody that looks like them doing what they want to do, and how empowering that is. Like, being able to see, like, when Kate being a power lifter and they're like, oh, word, like, you're strong. Or like when Courtney was an intern and I took her outside because she didn't understand the outdoor field stuff at all. And like something as simple as when she learned how to do dribbles or boom booms, and like she's explaining the drill and then does it. Like, guy or girl, it's just the ability to show what you're trying to get the athlete to do. But when you are the same person doing it, it gives them, it's like, oh, word, like I want to be like Coach Kate, or I want to be, if I'm a guy, hey, I want to be like Coach Justin. Like it does just help that athlete with that connection. Cause like you said, we're working with people and we're connecting with people. Quick break from the show to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button. So that way you get notifications of when more content like this gets released. So click that like and subscribe button. And with that, let's get back to the show. People.
Yeah, representation is huge, and I think we underestimate that sometimes, especially in athletic organizations. And when I left Penn State, I think that the most impactful kind of messages that came from athletes that I was working with there kind of centered around that. There was a athlete on the lacrosse team that she's a kinesiology student, and she wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach. And, I'm glad that she waited a little bit because she knew I was going to be a huge sap, but she waited about a week after I left, and she sent me this really nice text. And she's like, it's hard to imagine yourself in a field that doesn't have anybody like you in it. And she's like, and I got here, and you carried yourself well. You were in a male dominated profession. Like, you were strong, and you handled it well. And she's like, and it made it easier, for me to see myself in a role like that. So I think that's huge. And I think, that translates to life, because we are preparing athletes for life. We have to remember that we are coaching quite legitimately a game. And for most of them, this is the last time that they will do that, and they won't do that with the rest of their life, and they're people, and they have other things that they're allowed to be good at and do and explore. But also, that we're preparing them for that next phase. So I think the representation piece of it is huge, right?
How about in terms of working with the Gen Pop, the clients, personal training side of it now for you, and then anybody else that is listening to this? Is it difficult to cross and work with? Okay, you're a female private personal trainer, whatever the terminology. Please don't.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah.
I don't care. Well,
because like even strength coaches, they get mad. It's like, I'm a sports performance coach. I'm like, for the love of God, you understand what I'm trying to fucking say.
I got you.
Like difficulty, trying to bridge that gap where it's like, oh, I want somebody that, is a female that works with me. Like, what would be your advice in terms of how to niche down and start growing your personal training group of people that you have now? Anybody that's listening?
So I think the important thing to find, and this is something that I struggled with a little bit when I left, is not necessarily who you want to work with, because I think that we all have this idea of that in our mind. Obviously, we want driven people. We're used to athletes. We want people who can afford to pay for, what we're doing.
That was my first thought.
Right? We want people with money. We want, so that's a certain age group, usually a certain kind of demographic. We love a former athlete. We love, somebody who's self-motivated. We want somebody that's as, easy to coach as possible, because, right, that's the dream, right? Somebody who wants to be doing this. And so when I first started out, I really marketed really heavily to a former athlete, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I work with a lot of former athletes, but I didn't have the messaging that was really kind of hitting with my ideal client. I wasn't getting the clients that I wanted. So when I got out of collegiate, I had to explore why I really enjoyed coaching collegiate, the things that I really, really enjoyed doing, because I don't care how woo-woo it sounds. Those are the things that you're going to make money at, right? The things that give you energy. Like for you, you love working with other coaches and educating other coaches and having these conversations, right? And for me, I figured out that the reason that I love coaching in general is because I had the power to change how women view themselves, right? Period. Full stop. With athletes, that is, I had the power to kind of change how they feel about their bodies as a whole, how they feel about performance, right? How they feel about getting strong versus getting skinnier. And once I started exploring that in general population, I started attracting the type of client that I wanted to work with, not only in person, but also online. So for me, to make a long answer short, it's you have to bridge that gap. The way that you bridge that gap is you find the common ground between the two of those, right? I love working with women, in person now. Now I'm in DC and I work at a high-end gym, and I love working with women who are tired of shrinking themselves, who are tired of seeing themselves in a certain way. I love working with women who are open to, kind of shifting the way that they feel about their body and how it looks and how it performs. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, right? Peel back all of the layers and say, why do I even love coaching? And if it's because you love a sport or you love working with kids, then that's what you should be doing. But for me, I found that I could kind of do this at all age levels, right? But it's because I love, helping girls and women shift the way that they see themselves. And that has brought me, more money in the past several months than, any version of advertising that I've put out on my online business for wanting to work with former athletes just because they're athletes, right? So yeah, I hope that kind of answered the question that you were asking.
No, it does. And I had a lot of questions that came up. That's why I'm kind of
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
mumbling as I'm listening to you talk.
No, good.
So as you were, continuing to do that, and our coaches listening to it, they're going to be like, okay, you started talking about marketing. Like, do you have a website? How do you handle those first two things before I dive into the rest of the other things that I wrote down?
Just in terms of marketing.
Yeah, okay, so our strength coaches that are listening, they're like, hey, I like what she's saying. How do I start like dipping my toe in that? How do I start looking into who to market? Do I need to get a website? What did you do?
You don't need to get a website. I think that there are a lot of kind of conflicting ideologies about what you need to start a business in strength and conditioning. And a lot of those ideologies are perpetuated by people who want you to use their code to get Kajabi so you could build an online course, or who want you to use their Squarespace code, or who want you to get Flowdesk so you could get an email list, or who want you to do all of these, things that frankly at the base level are unnecessary for, your business starting out. Social media presence is huge. And the one thing that I will say to coaches, because I see it all the time and I think it is the number one mistake, you need to start making content that your ideal client wants to consume, right? There are so many coaches that will ask me to kind of look at their profile or look at their Instagram or look at this. And they're like, I put out all this good content, but, I'm not getting any private training clients. And then I go, to their Instagram page, and then I see this reel that's about the intricacies of the gait cycle. And I'm like, well, who the hell do you want to train?
I don't
Like,
even want to
who
watch
gives
that.
a shit about it? I also don't, and I'm a coach, right? And so, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making content for other coaches, right? That's literally what you do, right? You do that. But you're not looking for them to pay you to train them, right? So if you're looking for somebody to pay you for training, you have to think, okay, what does this person want? And how can I make content that appeals to them, right? So I would say that's the number one thing, is start thinking about, content you can make that will communicate with your ideal audience. And I get pushback on this, and people are like, well, how am I supposed to know? And I'm like, well, if you can't do that, then you probably can't coach them, right? And just to be completely frank, right? If you don't know what they really want, you're not going to be an effective coach, and you're not going to make sales either. So for me, I used to make a bunch of content that was super irrelevant to literally anything I want to do. And I was wondering why, and I
How
think it's
come
a
I'm not making more money?
it's just, why am I poor? And it's because my content was just all over the place, right? And now I have a little bit more freedom because I have, not a big audience by any means, but I've cultivated an audience that is pretty loyal, and they share my stuff, and they, refer me to people and things like that. So now I have a little bit more freedom. But for a while, I was creating content for people who just maybe like didn't want to count macros for the rest of their life, or like didn't want to weigh all their food, or like wanted to work out a reasonable amount of times per week, and it sounds stupid, at face value. But when you look at diet culture, that's really counterintuitive to a lot of the other content you see, where you go on the other side of Instagram and, women are weighing everything that they put on their plate, and, these ridiculous like bodybuilding split 6 day a week workouts and these ridiculous cardio routines and things like that. So you just need to start creating content that will appeal to your ideal client, whatever that is.
Within that, and you talk about women and handling the overly skinny fit culture nowadays, any guy listeners out there that might be personal trainers, they're like, what would you say to them to help the counterculture of like everybody's fucking roided out and shredded, and it's like, I'm like your alpha thing, like almost the same
Yeah.
term of that. It's like, oh, have your shirt off, man, and like everything's got to be fucking organic. Like that's probably the opposite of bro science right now. Like
Yeah.
you're fighting women selling booty building programs for $200, and we're almost fighting like, hey, build your six pack right now in these 8 minutes. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing that you have to realize is that's the loudest message, but it doesn't mean that it's the one that everybody wants to listen to,
ooh, good point.
right? So it's everywhere, but I know so many, I actually have like probably just as many male clients in person as I do female clients right now. And I love, working with male clients. A lot of my male clients are so much fun and they work really hard, and a lot of them move really well. But if I told a single one of them to weigh their food or to, do an ab exercise because it would give them a six pack, they would just be like, Jess, go fuck yourself. Like they will not hold back whatsoever, because that's not the life that they want to live. And they've been clear about that. They'll sit down with me in a consultation and they'll be like, I want to get a little bit stronger. I want to put on a little bit of muscle. I just don't want to be a fat piece of shit, like, and that's it. And that's like the bar for pretty much 90% of people, they want something that they can maintain. They want to look a little bit better. And now people will even come into consultations and say to me, I don't want to do like the chicken broccoli thing. Like, I don't want to do like the bodybuilding thing. Like, I don't want to be all
Nice.
like hulked out, shredded up. Like, that's not my vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the more, even though that, like I said, the loudest message is like, hey, shredded, supplements, chicken, all organic, like you're talking about. Most people realize that that's not the life that they want to live. So I think we need to stop pretending that that's what everybody wants to be. Because it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? And I think it's bad on the male side, but I think it's even worse on the female side. I think we've just taken it and ran with it. So
What's up, strength coaches? Want to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about our sponsor, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is your one-stop shop for online training platform needs as a coach. With TeamBuildr, you're going to be able to program for your athletes whether they're in person or remote. Using TeamBuildr, not only will you be able to program for your athletes, but there are special features such as the leaderboard and locking training with wellness questionnaires. With the leaderboard, you can have an exercise performed that day, whether it be a lift, a sprint, or a jump, and scores can be updated in real time and projected on a TV in the training. Wellness questionnaires can be used at the beginning of training, and your athletes will have to fill them out prior to being able to train. This ensures that as a coach, you're being able to collect quality data before the athletes train. So, if you're interested in TeamBuildr, click the link down below and find out more information. Let's get back to the show.
What would you say to the fact that like you were just saying, like, okay, hey, they just want to do these certain things. Like there really is that lower hanging fruit for the gen pop than we might realize, because like if we're getting out of working with college athletes, it's like, you gotta fucking sleep and you gotta do, and it's just like, you know what, man, yeah, like let's just get you training a little bit and like let's build these foundational habits. And I'll never forget one of my neighbors at my old place in Maryland. She was like, listen, I had to just start realizing that if I could do 10 push-ups a day, I like that was a habit. And then like she could start building from there. But I was just like, Pratik Patel said it too when he was on the show. He's like, listen, you don't have to get everybody as dialed in as maybe you did when you were working with damn near professional athletes, for you at Michigan and me at Iowa. Like it is different. How did you handle that slowing down in your mind?
I think that was a bigger, I think that was something I had to handle, not only working with clients, but even coaching myself, and I don't know if anybody else has dealt with this, but there is, I think, this crazy expectation that, strength coaches are like in great shape, and a lot of them I know are, right? But it doesn't take 6 workouts a week and a perfect diet to keep somebody in general population looking and moving really well, right? And looking amazing. It doesn't take that. So I had to complete that transition within myself, which took a lot of work in terms of not listening to the, 6-day a week bodybuilding split, chicken, rice, broccoli, mumbo jumbo. But it also took me flipping that switch in my mind and being like, I was working with the top 2%, right? And now I'm working with the 98% below that. And all they want to do is live a better life than they're living now, and with the side effect of looking a little bit better. So I think for me, it was kind of tempering my expectations in terms of what actually can I ask these people to do? What realistically can I do working 50, 60, 70 hours a week? And what are these people doing now? And how do we just kind of get the ball rolling, right? Start pushing it down the road. So for me, I created a lot of really basic workout templates that I think a lot of my clients were surprised by, because I think what you're saying is actually pretty uncommon in the fitness industry. Most of my clients that come to me online, I start them out at 3 days a week, maybe 35 to 45 minutes at most, in the gym. And that includes warm up and cool down. Because if you can do that for a month, you're going to see progress. And then if you can do that for a month and say, hey, I think I got another day in me, like 100%, we can go there. But I think I also know some strength coaches who get Gen Pop clients and they drive them into the ground because they treat them like they're almost professional athletes, right? And I'm like, homegirl does not need to do legs for an hour and 45 minutes. You're going to kill her. So yeah, I think like it takes adjustment. It's a different craft, right? It's a completely different craft. So
how do you talked about having a really nice place that you work at in the gym. For anybody that's listening, they're like, okay, how did you negotiate percentage, rent, gym split? Like, again, I'm not asking you for specific details, but from a 10,000 foot view, like what are some things that you would advise any of our listeners?
I mean, I work for a corporate gym, so all of that stuff was preset. I was fortunate in that, I got on board and I was really kind of tenacious, because like I wanted clients, I wanted to train, I wanted to coach. That's what I do. And I built my business really, really quickly. And that's one of the benefits about being at a corporate gym is you have leads, right? You have kind of people handed to you that you can take through consultations, that you can take through workouts. And I was moving to a new area. So I knew that that was going to be something that was going to serve me really well. You don't move to a new area, know zero people, and rent out a warehouse and expect, like kids to just show up at your door, right? Some people do, actually. Some people do
That's
that.
why I'm laughing, because I know they have.
I've heard that story a few times.
Like, I want to live here and I want to do this. It's like,
and this is my business.
Yeah, it's like, does the area want that?
We don't know. But the nice thing is that's always been something that's on my radar, is doing that down the road. But I knew I needed to get a feel for the area, needed to get a feel for the clientele, needed to connect myself. So a corporate gym was the way to go. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to build my business really quickly, and I work for a gym that compensates me really, really well. And it is possible to make 2-3 times what you're making in collegiate working elsewhere and having work-life balance. Had I gone a different route, which, like I said, I think you need a network to do, even if you're renting space at a gym, I think people don't think about client retention. They don't think about turnover. They don't think about people leaving during the holidays because they want to save money. They don't think about clients traveling. So they get really gung-ho and they decide to rent out training space in a gym and they just don't have the clientele for it, right? I think if you're looking to do that, your best bet is a smaller, kind of like a warehouse gym that's not, owned by someone who's franchising gyms or someone who owns a bunch of things, because usually these people are really happy to have qualified trainers, representing their gym. They're happy to have you bringing possibly additional members into the gym. It's profitable for them, and they obviously get a cut of your training. I think if you're going that route, just because you have to bring the leads in, I think you should, ideally be making between 60 to 75% of what you're charging. You have to remember that this is somebody else's space. This is somebody else's equipment. There's a lot of overhead that goes into it. So, when I work with somebody at a third party facility and I'm charging $120, $140 an hour, you can't be expected to keep all of that, right? At some places you only keep half of that. And if you have a problem with it, I say go build your own gym, I guess. I don't know, so.
Speaking of build your own gym, is that, like when you look at yourself in the next 1, 3, 5 years, is that the plan for you? Do you want to take over a gym? Like, what do you want to do?
That's such a good question. Wow.
Wow, should have asked it myself.
Wow, goodness. I don't know, and I think that's okay. I would like to have something that's my own. I've always been really like entrepreneurial in nature, right? And I would like to have something that's more of a facility rather than like a gym, like turf and sports performance and things like that. But I, don't, like, I'm learning the market here. And I'm not just going to create something because I want to create it. I want to create something that's going to serve the population that I want to serve, right? So I think I'm taking a couple years to learn the market here, working with some, lacrosse athletes and doing private lessons and doing skill training and seeing kind of where that takes me. DC is expensive, so I'm not just gonna break ground and build a mega gym anytime in the next 6 months. But I think that down the road, absolutely, I would love to have my own space and have my own team of coaches. So.
Speaking of breaking ground and doing that, are these programs Gym Launch, Gym Con? I see them pop up on my social media. Are these things good, bad for personal trainers, strength coaches, in your opinion? Like, and for anybody that doesn't know it, if you know it better than I do, can you elaborate on what those things are?
I don't know what I was literally like, am I missing some revolutionary, or do I just not know the names of these things? What
Yeah,
is
so
this?
they're these companies that help gym owners, grow and expand because they
Oh,
understand like finances more, right? And
okay.
so like Alex Hormozy, he started a company called Gym Launch, and
Mhm.
they come in and they help these gym owners understand, different maybe P&L, they different terminology and how to grow and expand um their space. And the reason that I was asking that is it's like, okay, if you're bringing in a bunch of gen pop people that maybe they're just like, hey, yeah, I want to go, and okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to train with this person and they're going to make me better. But just like an athlete, if you're only with them 20 or one, but then the 23 hours out of the day, like, is it good to be bringing in all these flooded people that might not be motivated? And I know we just talked about the fact that, yeah, there's a you know, lower hanging fruit for them, but is it good to be bringing in people into an ecosystem like that where you, the trainer, are training people that, like, frankly, you want it more than they do?
Okay, so I'm having it's Friday.
I
Uh,
fucking talk a lot, and it's a
no,
lot
it's
of what
good.
happens in my head. I don't spit it out very well. Like Kate and Logan and my other assistants, they're like, he's got Lima brain right now, and that's what's going on. Like, I don't express it
That's
well,
fine.
what's coming in my head.
That's fine. I was okay, so and I think I was also thinking while you were talking, and that's my B, 100%. So I, ugh. So I, so the you're the first kind of thing that you were talking about was this, like, these are almost like teams of professionals that have opened gyms that come
Hey,
to
we'll help you
you
get
and
more
they,
leads, and we're going to get more members into your gym, is essentially what they're
okay,
selling.
so it's a lot of like lead generation, things like
Lead
that.
generation and bringing more and more members into the gym to grow the gym. But then for you, the trainer, if you're getting more and more leads of people that are not good quality leads, is that good? Is it bad?
I think I feel a couple different ways about this, right? I think it's a great, um, I think conceptually this is great because I think there's this really common misconception that if you know how to, if you're an expert at something, people will find you.
Right.
And that's not true. I can't just stand outside and be like, I'm a
Jess
trainer,
Burke's ready to train, just like me. I'm
coach
like, listen,
body
I
by
don't work at
Jess.
Towson. I don't work at Towson anymore. People are just going to come flying to me
People
with
are
money. He's got a
literally,
PhD. Come train with it. Like, I'm going to go train with him.
they're going to track me down. They, in fact, will not. And they won't. And so I think that conceptually, this is a great way to kind of get the word out. But like I said, I think this is a solution for somebody who doesn't understand their market very well. And I also think that if you can't generate your own leads, there are going to be other pitfalls in your business building that you're not prepared for, right? I don't meet a lot of people who are experts in all things business and have no idea how to generate their own leads, how to get people in the door, things like that. So if you, and I'm sure what these guys are doing is great because like Hormozi's super smart guy, right? Like business wizard, has built, truly an empire, right? But I don't think what these guys are doing is anything that's groundbreaking conceptually, right? If you are looking to do something, if you're looking to open a gym, like you need to be an integral part of the community. You need to be out there. People need to know who you are. You need to be hosting free events. You need to be doing workshops. You need to be partnering with businesses. You need to be going to apartment complexes and asking if you can put up flyers. You need to be offering trial memberships. You need to be offering complimentary training sessions. And these are things that you could pay somebody to do and run the risk of generating a lot of low quality leads that have put their email into an email funnel and don't really give a shit about you or your business, right? Or you can kind of hit the ground and do some marketing and do some things that maybe you think you're too good for, right? Like I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm still, I'll overhear people talking about like their kids playing a sport at a coffee shop. And I'm like, hey, by the way, like, I overheard what you're talking about. I do like sports performance training, like blah, blah, blah. And you would be surprised how connected the community is, even in a larger place here like DC, where people are like, oh my gosh, my, sister, my niece plays lacrosse at this high school and she wants private lessons and she's trying to make varsity. You know what I mean? So if you're not willing to put yourself out there, I don't think that you maybe you also don't have the skill set to capitalize on these leads when you get the emails, when you get the phone numbers, things like that.
Yeah.
But conceptually, I think it's good because I think this is something people struggle with. So I'd be interested to see like what the kind of premise is behind that.
Yeah. And how about like CrossFit? You think CrossFit is good for the private sector of strength and conditioning or even collegiate strength and conditioning? Like, are you getting people that are like, hey, I want to do my WOD, or like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think that it is easy to put on like a judgment cap when you have been in the industry a long time and when you have a high level of knowledge and, like strength coaches do. I think it's really easy. But I also think it's easy to just shut the hell up and let people do what they want to do and let people
Ooh,
do what they enjoy,
yeah.
right? So I don't do CrossFit because I'm old and it would
You're
ruin me.
younger than me.
It would I move like I'm 73. It would ruin me. It would absolutely, you'd have to put me down afterwards. And so I don't do it, right? But I know people who that's the way they get out of the house and
Yeah.
go to the gym 3 times a week. So who am I to shit on that because I don't agree with the methodology? there are plenty of things I don't agree with on earth that exist every day, and I'm perfectly fine letting them exist, right? And it's just, it's like as easy as that, right? When I have people that come to me who do, and I'm not likening the two, so I don't want any confusion here, that do CrossFit or that do like a group fitness that's high impact, high intensity, so like an Orange Theory or something like that.
Yeah.
I do have people that come to me, at the gym that I'm at now, and say that they've done things like that and they haven't seen results, or, like kind of like the boot camp, like the Orange Theory, F45, things like that, right? That may be a little bit higher impact. The goal is to burn calories and move and, whatever. That come to me and they ask my honest opinion because either they weren't necessarily seeing results, or, they're experiencing some sort of chronic or lingering injury or pain. And then I share my opinion that, like, hey, that stuff isn't for everybody and it is high impact. And anytime you're in a group setting and you're doing, these ballistic, high intensity, high speed movements, you're not being watched by anybody. And there's, a lot of kind of danger in that and a lot of damage that can be done over time. But, bottom line, if that's how somebody gets their body moving 2 or 3 times a week, it would be pretty shitty of me to tell them that they were an idiot for that, right? Like that's not kind, right? So is it my cup of tea? No. Am I ever going to make somebody feel bad because of their modality of exercise? Also no, right?
Last question within this kind of series of questions about the private sector and industry. How would you rebuttal in that kind way? Because that is something important for our listeners to understand. Even for me, like learning to not be just the psychopath. Like that's fucking stupid. Like, because trust me, that's
come out of my mouth at least 500,000 times.
How do you handle the strength coach that tells you like, well, Jess, like I just don't like sales. I don't want to do sales. Like, how do you handle that notion of anybody that wants to get out of collegiate, but they're nervous about going into the private sector?
Well, the first question I ask is what is sales? What do you think sales is? What don't you like about sales? And usually people say, well, I don't want to be pushy. And then I remind them that every sales call I've ever been on is because somebody has reached out to me because they have a problem and I can fix it, right? Sales for me is helping people solve the problems that cause them the most pain, right? So I have people that have injuries that they can't get rid of. I have people that really don't like the way they look. They can't look in the mirror. I have people that, have no control around food. I have people that have a really bad relationship with both food and exercise. I have people that are just kind of crippled by analysis paralysis because there's so much information out there. And I know that I can take them from having this problem to not having this problem, right? And I'm confident in that. And since I have viewed sales as helping people solve the problems that, bother them the most, that hurt them the most, it's been really, really easy because I never go into a call with how can I close this so I can make money. I go into a call and I think, like, wouldn't it be cool if this person came to me and they were in so much pain, mental, physical, whatever, and then after 6 months, like their life was 20 times better. Like that'd be so fucking cool, right? So that's twofold. If you're going into this and you're selling because you want money, I would encourage you to choose a different industry, right? Maybe like sell roofs or, something that people need to buy that they will pay $50,000 for. But if you're going into this industry for the right reasons, because you like connecting with people and you want to help them, then sales is you talking about how much you care about that person and how much you can get them out of the situation that they're currently in.
I mean, that's a very much of a mic drop moment, in my opinion. How have you been able to transition from the outside looking like you've landed on your feet, whatever terminology you want to use, but working in college and having so much of your identity because you loved coaching and you've talked about that, but your identity shifting to now this different world and being able to handle it so gracefully, elegantly, whatever way you want to call it. How have you been able to do that? And how do you recommend anybody of our listeners that are going through a similar change? Because right now it's Friday, December 1st. It's Black Friday. A lot of coaches, or Black Monday was earlier in the week. Coaches are going through changes. how do you recommend coaches do things in a way that you've been able to?
I I love this comment, right? I love this like compliment you've given me that I've handled it with grace. And I just would like to be fully transparent and say that there are a lot of moments in which like I haven't, right? I think you're completely right. And this is something that I've struggled with just mentally and emotionally over the last several months. Is so much of my identity was being a coach, and so much of my identity was working with athletes. And I the trajectory of my career within collegiate was so it was quick. Like everything happened so quickly. And, from me deciding I was going to do this, to graduating with my master's, to being at Michigan, at Purdue, at Penn State, realistically in my dream job. And I never envisioned that I would have gotten where I got when I started this. And that was something that took so, so long to grieve, right? I never imagined I would walk away from something that I thought I was going to do for my entire life. And that was, since the day I decided I was going to be a strength coach, that was all I could envision, was doing that. So the last 6 months, I don't want anybody to get the misconception that it's easy, or get the misconception that this wasn't the hardest thing that I've ever done. I think that the people around me can attest to the fact that, the first month or so, it was relief, because, while my department was great, there were just a couple really toxic situations in the workplace that were eating at me. And it was like that relief of not having to be in that every day. Right. And then, after that kind of set in and I was like, this is my life now, and I'm not coaching. It was a lot, right? I probably I probably have cried more days than I have not, since leaving. And that's, I mean, most of that is like, I fucking miss the kids, man.
Right.
Like these kids, and they'll like send me pictures of them, and they'll be like, we miss you. I'll always get the random text at the worst time. I was like out to dinner with my friends the other night. I get like,
You're
a
just fucking
picture
crying. I'm
of,
just so.
I was sobbing, dude. It was like 4 of my gymnasts and 3 of my male golfers, and they're like, we miss you. And I'm just like, these fucking kids, like, these are my
Someone
fucking
cutting onions.
babies.
The
I
fuck.
know. And everyone around me is like drinking high noons and shooting tequila, and they're like, can you grow up? And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, it's tough. I don't want anyone to get the misconception that it's not tough. But kind of what I talked to you earlier about was, you need to realize you can't do this for the kids forever, right? And I think
Okay.
some of us do. And I could get freaking suckered into it, because
Yeah.
I like, by one kid. All it takes
Yes.
is one kid. I had this
Yep.
5th year kid, and she told me, she was like, I'm coming back for a 5th year, and if you leave, I don't want to be here. And I was like, well, I guess we're
Looks like
here.
I'm fucking here.
Ha, we're here together. You know what I mean? All it takes is like and they have no idea, right, how much we care about them. You can't do this for the kids forever. You have to do it for yourself. And in that transition, you have to realize that you're making the decision that's best for yourself, which might be staying. But for me, it wasn't. And then doing what we talked about earlier, in connecting my purpose with coaching athletes to doing something outside of that. And for me, it still is coaching, and it's still working with people in the same realm, but it doesn't have to be that, right? Why do you love to coach? That's the first question that you have to ask yourself. And it's because you like the logo, and you like the $800 worth of free gear every year, and you like working 90 hours a week, then you got to stay, baby girl, because that's the only option, But if it's because you like connecting with humans, you need to say, okay, what do I like about it? Or if it's because you love exercise physiology, right? Then you have to say, okay, what do I like about it? Like, what makes me tick? And for me, it was, I could change the way that people see themselves within their own body, right? And I can do that outside of collegiate. And I miss the kids every day. And I still I'm doing really good right now, because the Strength Coach Network just doesn't need, my emotional trauma, right? But But like, I still will be like driving and like, it's always like the songs that came on in the weight room, right? Like a Lil Baby song came on the other day, freaking Lil Baby. And I was just like, I just miss my kids, like, so, so it's still there, right? It's still there. It still sucks. And I appreciate you saying that, I've handled it well, but I think it's tough. So I think anybody that, is looking to leave, like, you need to understand that if your exit doesn't look like how you perceived my exit, it shouldn't, because my exit was nothing like that. It was emotional. It was tough. I struggle with it. I struggle with my identity. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I'll echo that because I've recently gotten out too, and it is hard, especially when, like you said, like I woke up a couple times from I go to bed fucking stupid early. Like, thank God Megan doesn't care that I'm like, all right, it's 7:45 or 8 o'clock, I'm going to bed. Like, thank God for that. So anyways, the kids, if they sent me a text, it's already late at night, so I would wake up and read it in the morning. But being like, hey coach, this agent's reaching out to me about training here, I know nothing. They have another strength coach, and then for the ask me, or like, hey coach, I know you had all my data because you were a data freak, like, can you send, like, so when they would just reach out to you and say things like that, like, you're right, it does, and it makes you like, it's that hit of heroin where you're like, fuck, I'll go right back, like, I'll jump back in, like, the kids need me, like, and you'll just want to go right back into it. No.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's tough, and like, I'm still proximity wise close to Penn State, so
Ooh,
I
yeah.
think that's good because they will have to kick me out of the gymnastics meets this year. I'll tell you what, I'm number one fan. Sorry about it. Sorry about their luck. But so that's great for me, but it really is. And I think that, kind of how you're saying that, you're similar to me as a coach, because I don't think that everybody would say that. I don't think that every coach would say that. But the way that, like, the athletes just have me wrapped around their finger, where they could text me and they just be like, miss you, coach, and I'd be just crying in the club. So it's, and that's what we love about it, right? Is that connection piece. So um, you've translated that into working with other coaches and improving the profession, and you
Yeah.
just have a love for what this profession could be. And that's how you've made that exit, right? And I think it's okay to spend a while figuring that out, and I'm still figuring that out, and I'm sure you are too, right? What does the rest of your life look without collegiate? Because like you said, I'll literally have days. I was like folding one of my Penn State shirts the other day, and I was like, I'm fucking going back.
Whether they hire me back
I'm
or not, they need an
I'm
intern.
volunteer intern. I'm fucking going back. You thought I was poor before. Holy shit, Like, I like, literally, I'm insane. But like, you get it, right?
Yeah.
You get it. So,
What would be your piece of advice to a young, aspiring strength and conditioning coach listening to this right now?
out of all of the things,
Mm-hmm.
um
The
my
next two questions, it's going to be an established strength coach and then a head strength coach. So, what would you say to somebody that's just getting started, whether they just got their first job or they're a GA?
um I would say, um gosh, that's a really hard question. Somebody who's just getting started, I
Yep.
would say, um, just enjoy everything for what it is and don't lose yourself in the process. Not everything is about the better logo, the better job, the better, the office to yourself, or the better basketball program, or any of that, right? You do what you do because you love coming to work every day, and you love seeing these kids, and you love making them better, or at least you should. If you don't, get out. We're done with you. Um, but but you asked my honest opinion. But don't, you know, don't lose yourself within it, right? Enjoy the day to day. Like, those are the things that you're going to be thankful for when you look back on your career in strength and conditioning, no matter how long it is. Like, cultivate the relationships, take the time to get to know your athletes, and enjoy the process. Enjoy being an intern, enjoy being a GA, enjoy being somebody's assistant. Like, enjoy the profession, because at its core, I think it is one of the most wonderful things that you can do with your time.
Fucking, that'll preach. What would you say then to somebody who's established? They've been around for a while. They're not ahead, but they're, an established strength and conditioning coach 3, 4, 5 years into it.
I would say it's okay that it's fucking difficult. And the only way that the profession is going to get better is if we talk about it, right? If we talk about the things that need to improve. I was happy that so many people reached out to me, but I was disappointed because it means that we're not having these conversations where we need to be having them. And no matter, what your department looks like, if you can't look at your coworker and say, hey man, this shit is hard. We work all the time. I'm tired. I'm emotionally spent. My mental health isn't where it needs to be. If you can't look around at those people and say that, then we need to do better as a profession. So talk about it, right? And ask for things that will make your day-to-day better. Ask for support from your director, from your coworkers. Ask for, the funding that you think you need for the athletes. Always, advocate for yourself and for your athletes, and don't shy away from that, because like I said, you're looking for the next logo or the next team or the, be on the right side of the profession for sure.
How about somebody that's a director, whether it's assistant AD, or just they're running the department? What would be your advice to them?
I think check in with your people. Check in with your coaches, and advocate for them. If your department is your team, right? In that sense. And we're all coaches and we're all protective of our team. And there's a lot of bullshit out there, whether it's from the department or strength or, other strength coaches or other, support staff or, in my experience, especially sport coaches, right? There's a lot of shit that can happen in the collegiate landscape that you can support your team through and that you can protect them from. And so you need to be checking in. And you need to realize that even though like you have your own athletes, you have your own teams, like you are the leader of a department, and you need to bring cohesion to that department in some way. And you need to make sure that everybody feels like they're part of something, like they're supported, because that's what we want in a workplace, right? So yeah.
All right, next couple of questions are a little bit more rapid fire, not as heavy.
Okay.
What is your favorite movie? These are new questions that we're adding to the show. So you're the pilot with all of them. So
fuck, I'm not a red flag. I'm not a movie person.
That's fine. Fuck. If you had to say, what would be your favorite movie? If you had to get something.
I mean, I'm like a Harry Potter gal, so I guess we could go with one of those. I think the fourth one is probably my favorite. A little Goblet of Fire action. Harry Potter
Never
gal.
seen it. So
okay,
you're inspiring me now to actually want to listen. That's just one of the many reasons as to why I am.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that.
Next question. If you were a food, what would it be?
I would be a croissant, obviously.
Fucking croissant. Like, really? Listen, I'm not shit. Like, I'm just surprised. Like,
obviously,
I thought it'd be like a full meal. Okay. Animal.
Well,
if you're going to be
okay.
No, let's talk about the croissant. What?
Well, I'm just, I didn't like,
because it pairs well with coffee.
It pairs well with coffee, right? It does. That's actually a good point. Pairs well with coffee. Nothing really else about it is relevant to my personality now that I think about it. But I'm gonna stand by it. I would be a croissant. Good
if
question.
You were an animal, what would you be? Like, what's your
like my spirit animal?
Sure.
Oof. These are hard questions. These are harder than the last ones. I had the last ones ready. What advice would you give professionally? Get into your feelings. If you were an animal, what would you be? No fucking clue. A shit. And I'm the first person to do this.
Yeah, you're the
answer
first
these
person because
questions?
somebody asked me these questions. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start adding some of these
This
in.
is so unfair. I think I would be a. Ooh. Have you ever had trouble remembering what animals exist on the planet? Because I can't think of
100%.
any.
Are there any
Um,
animals that pair well with coffee?
I I can't think of a single animal right now. Shit. I would say, maybe I would say maybe an owl. I
Ooh,
think that'd be good. Yeah,
you're
I
a
think
fucking
that'd be
killer.
good.
Owls will
Kind
shred
of
you
like
apart.
a killer, but and I think this is only in the last few years. Like before I was very obvious about it. I think I was more of a lion that was just in your face. And
Oh, yeah.
now I'm watching, I'm judging, I'll intervene if I need to. And otherwise I'm napping. So
That's awesome. If you were a car, what would you be?
if I was a car, what would I be? See, I know cars. If I was a car, what would I be? These are good questions. What do people say? Wait, what would you be
I said,
if you
I
were a
mean, the
car?
truck I have, a F-150. Like,
Okay, so you just would be an F-150.
I would just be the vehicle that I already have. I have my dream vehicle right now. I guess technically, if I had to evolve it, I love the GMC Sierra.
Okay, but
Um,
what makes you the F-150? That's
oh,
you
See,
just
like the
like the
reason that
car.
I'd be the F-150 is it's okay, big bed, so I can can haul a lot of shit. I like to help
Okay,
people, right?
okay,
But
okay.
at the same time, I have it where it's the big crew cab where I can be with the whole family. I can transport people. You can put the
Mm-hmm.
little cover on the back of it, so it's not only are you moving and helping people do stuff, but you can move lots of luggage, take a trip, right? It's dependable in
Mm-hmm.
the snow and the sun, doesn't matter. I'm going to get the job done. That's why.
Wow, that's
Told
good.
you, psychopath. Like I had a full fucking ready answer for you on that.
That was good. What'd you say for animal though? What?
Oh, lion. I paused because I was like, fuck, I don't want to say lion, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. Like,
Yeah, I had to think about it a little bit more. Um, I don't know if we're going car. I'm thinking. I mean, I've kind of been. I've my instinct, right? But this is not my final answer. My instinct, because I've been a Wrangler gal my whole life, so my instinct is Wrangler, right? But now that I'm a little less. Wranglers they're loud and they really are. Have you ever driven in one? Especially if you got the soft top, you just can't hear shit. And that definitely used to be me, 100%. You couldn't hear shit. You couldn't get a word in edgewise. So I would definitely say 20s dress Wrangler, 100%. But now my tastes are a little bit elevated, right? I think, um, I think I so the one of the last cars I had, I think, was most suiting to my personality. So I had a BMW X4, right?
oh shit.
And it looked, I know, as a collegiate strength
To
coach,
quote
what was she
Drake,
doing?
you fancy, huh? Like,
Listen, you're telling me, you're telling me. So I got to pay for my life. So you're telling me, okay? No, but I thought it was good because the car for BMW really kind of surprised me. It was good in all situations. It was a great all-weather car, right? But it was bougie on the outside, right? And then
mm-hmm.
you got in, and it was kind of funky because I had this
You're oh.
red, I had this burgundy leather interior and shit. You know what I mean? People were like, "What the fuck is it?" And I think that's how I am, right? I'm a little bougie on the outside, and then once you get to know me, you're like, "What is going on in here?" So I thought it was good, right? So yeah, I would say the BMW X4 is my car equivalent.
All right. Now to what I thought would be the harder questions, but these are apparently going to
No,
be
these
easier.
are going to be easy.
What do you wish people knew about you that they don't know about you?
Um, I wish, this is a hard question. I think it's people who know me well, right? So people who are close to me, I think, understand me on a really deep level, but I think that the persona I portray is very like out there and just kind of in your face and things like that. And I think I am that way to a point. But I think it comes from just like years of me not wanting people to know how frickin' soft I am, right? So I think I wish people understood that, like, above everything, I am the most aggressive, like, empath you will ever meet in your life. Like, I care about people, right? I really care. And if people are sad, I'm sad. That coach that called me that was crying on FaceTime, I was crying on FaceTime. I'm like, I'm sorry you're having this experience. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wish people understood that. And I think that's why, coaching has been such, an easy and fulfilling thing to me, because I think, like, I feel really deeply, and especially like with my athlete, like, you could ask anyone, if an athlete is crying in my office, I'm crying in my office with the athlete. Like, it's game on. I'm like, why do you feel this way? You know? So I wish people understood, like, how deeply I really care about people, because I think I come off kind of brash, and like, I really do just care about, like, being kind and people, having a good experience in, whatever they do. So I don't think that reads sometimes, but
What piece of advice would you give to your old self? 5, 10. What you pick? You pick how long ago?
I'm going to pick like early 20s. And I would say shut the hell up. Like, stop. Like, stop talking, because you don't know everything, right? And you can learn so much from listening to people if you would just shut the hell up. And I think that is something that people try to tell me eloquently over my younger years, but I think people needed to just tell me shut the hell up. And I think I've grown a lot, and I think kind of, we talked about the owl thing, but now I sit back and listen a lot more. And I ask a lot of questions, even at the job that I work at now. Like, there are people that have just started their training careers, right? And I want to learn from them, because they know something I don't know. I don't know what it is yet, but the only way I find out is if I shut the hell up, right? And listen. And so I think I've gotten a lot better at that. But that would be, I felt like I had to know everything at a young age. And I think a lot of us feel that in this industry, especially. And I just wish I would have listened more and talked less, right?
Second to last question. This is the cheeky midweeky. So, what is something cheeky about you?
Something cheeky about me. That's just like silly, right?
Yeah, like cheeky. Like, so if you look up the actual definition, it's irrelevant, typically in an endearing way. So like, kind of something silly, being like, the Aussies or the Brits will be like, oh, he's having a cheeky pint. I know I shouldn't have this drink in the middle of the day, or like, you know what I mean? So what's something cheeky about you that like people should know?
Is this the first time you've asked this question?
This is.
Oh, damn.
You're the
I'm
pilot
like the
on all
guinea
these.
pig for all of this.
Fuck yeah.
Something cheeky about, like, what type of thing, would, like, a fun fact, or like something
Sure.
about your
Yeah, like for me,
personality?
like something
Yeah.
cheeky about me, like, whew, man, like I something cheeky about me, like, and I guess I would fall it in the category of like, okay, something that maybe people don't know about me, or it's like, oh, a quirky fact. Like, I'll cry at a Disney movie with my kids, fucking crazy, right? But that's real. So
Yeah, I mean, that can't be mine, because I already told you I'm an empath and I cry at everything. So that can't be mine. Mine,
I guess cheeky would be like guilty pleasure. How like, right? Like,
yeah,
love to,
I
I guess, I
think
don't know.
I think something cheeky about me that, like, a lot of people don't know, that I think is like funny when they find out, is I was like a really big, like, music nerd when I was younger. And so I played the cello for years. And I also like
Is
played
that the big one?
not the super big one, but it is big. You like sit behind it. And like played the piano and did like the choir stuff and
Fucking right,
all
you
of that
did.
stuff. So I think that's funny because it's so kind of counterintuitive. Like I've just transformed into like this like jock like gym, and I'm like, well, my cello is in the closet, so I'll just I could get it out and play you something. So I think that's definitely a cheeky fact about me. Yeah.
All right, final question. Wearing a hat inside coaching in the weight room with your athletes, team issued, is that unprofessional or not?
I think anything to do with hats is fake discipline. And what I mean by that is um, the fact that we view a hat as professional or unprofessional is really funny to me. Hats are not my personal choice, right? But if you cannot maintain your professionalism while wearing a hat, that seems to be a you problem. That doesn't seem to be a hat problem. So I don't know that I care. But I know that I'm going to get a lot of shit because some people are going to come on here and be like, I would never wear a hat inside in front of my athletes. That is so disrespectful. And I don't feel that emotionally attached to it. So maybe the wrong person to ask this question to.
You were the perfect person to ask that to for your response. Thank you.
What's your opinion? Like,
not even a little bit unprofessional. If it's a team issued hat and you're wearing, like, who cares?
It's also literal. It's a hat.
Like, who really cares? Like, one of my throwers, Kayla, she fucking like, for her thing was almost like, it was almost ritualistic. Like, she might even turn it a little sideways or backwards, and she's like, okay, now like I really got to lock in on this rep. I don't give a fuck. Do what you got to do.
No, I think I like I said, anything like weird uniform like that's fake discipline to me, right? I don't know. That's a whole other topic, but
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with us. Anybody, they know where to continue to follow you? Is there any place you want them to be redirected to or whatnot?
I mean, really just on Instagram, is where I do the bulk of my kind of communication. I check it the most. So that's, at Coach J Burke, Burke. And then I would really just encourage people to, like, if you haven't already reached out and like you want somebody to talk to about the profession or anything like that, or your experience, I love connecting with people in this field, right? So never be shy to reach out and chat or just say hey and make the connection. So yeah.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.